I need. Hi, hello, and welcome to another ICC with me. How is it going, folks? So, interesting things are happening. So, last night? No, yesterday? Maybe. It was an ICC. I had Starbucks. So the day before yesterday, um, I ended up finding the video today, and it was from 4/4/2023. I thought it was like when I was in my apartment, but it was actually before I moved into my apartment. And it's so funny how, like, when I was watching it back, first of all, how, like, when my hair was shorter, like, there were ways to style it that was kinda cute, and I feel like I just spent so much time when my hair was shorter waiting for the day when it would be longer, like, past my shoulders. Um, I was like, "Man, that was" you know, the optics just aren't the same when the hang time is, like, down here and not, like, right here. You know what I mean? So, anyway, I'm sticking the straw in. This is a fresh ICC. The G stands for gifted. This is, oh, wow. Got my ICC. I got some water. So, in the last reading, we saw the leopard in the tree, right? And it's funny. So, anyway, because of the leopard, it brought forth the energy of the lion. And even in that reading, it was very much the same in how, like, we reached the point, or whoever, yeah, we, generally, colloquially, we, reached the point of the magician in the mirror with the sun and that Lafruma. And, like, then it's like at that point, what is there for the leopard to do? And it's so funny because when it was the lion on 4/4/2023, it was lion spread. Like, I went to the other channel and I was like watching through videos and I was searching and I got an approximate date and then I ended up on a completely different video. And it's interesting because when I was watching that video, Hang True came out and we've been seeing Hang True a lot. And in that video, I'm like, I never see Hang True. And that was like 4/7/2023, April 7th, 2023. And now it's like been coming out pretty much every time I use the runes. Um, but that wasn't the video. Oh, so yeah, that wasn't the one. And I was watching through it and I was like, okay, well, let me just type lion. And then, of course, when I typed lion, it popped up. So on this channel, there was an easier way um, to find the video. But so in the video, it was April 4th, 2023. And it's interesting because Virgo and Pisces came out. But at that time, the nodes were probably still Taurus, Scorpio, because I think they were about to shift into Aries, Libra. And I didn't even, and it's funny because even when I was like watching myself pull it, I was like, I feel like there's something that I'm missing. The element was time. But I'm like, it could be Pisces to Virgo season, but it could be something else. Q2, North Node, Pisces, South Node, Virgo, right before the node shift, the lion is back, or the energy of that lion is back. And it's interesting because the Eight of Pentacles came out at some point of that lion spread. And watching it with the eyes I have now, I was like, Eight of Pentacles is the first decan of Virgo, which is where we are now. And it's the last space that the South Node occupies before it transits into Leo. And then also Strength came out. And even in that reading, by the end, it was like you go through so much in the space of this observation or working with the lion that by the time the lion would actually approach, like you don't even need it to do what you thought you needed it to do in the beginning. And it's also interesting that around that time is where the energy of like alignment and affinity. Affinity is what I'm calling it now because it makes sense. Attribution is what I said like yesterday, like an attribute of something. Um, but affinity feels right. Affinity feels like succinct. There's an affinity towards certain things, energies, entities. And it's interesting that it was there then because it's also that energy also came up again. And the part of me is like, well, is it interesting or is it just like the nature of how things work and how things go? You know what I mean? Because anyway, it was bookended. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, crazy. Didn't even think of the notes at that point. This has coffee gonna be gone. But anyway, what I'm here to do today is I'm just gonna look before and after big cats, named big cats, like it's the title of the card. I completely forgot, so I used the archeo archetypes for that one. I wasn't even thinking. Actually, I was. I don't know why I forgot. I don't know why when I saw it, it was so surprising. I think what I forgot is that it was the deep freeze card in the Enchanted Map Oracle that I no longer own that has like the sleeping lion. So in the Awakener card in the Archeo archetypes, where the person is like the bird thing is waking up the lion, I'm like, oh, because it was waking up the lion from that deep freeze hibernation. I did remember that there's a lion in here, but for some reason when I saw it, I was like surprised because I was like, yeah, there's the lion and then the Awakener. Hello, yeah. So I say name big cats because there are big cats that are featured on different cards in different decks, like Oil of Vitriol and the what unknown Alchemy. I'm not gonna pull that though. So what I have, we have the Jaguar in the Mystical Shaman Oracle cards. We have the Lion in both the Archeo archetypes and the what unknown Animal Spirits. I did feel some type of way about pulling the Lion twice. Hey Zelda, how's it going? It's been a minute. I hope everything's going well. Um, I did feel some type of way about pulling the lion twice, but since it's an Archeo archetype, I'm fine with it. And then I have the Tea Leaf Fortune cards. I don't know if there's a big cat in the Tea Leaf Fortune cards, but I feel like there is. And also, um, the Mulan, because I was rewatching it, right? There was a theory that in Mulan, when Mushu goes to wake up like the most powerful ancestor in Mulan's lineage, he like breaks the lion statue and like you never see the ancestor. And they're like, oh my gosh, like the other ancestors are freaking out. But there's a theory that the ancestor did wake up and it was like inside of Mulan all along. And it like it gave her the strength and the courage to do what she did and also like it was there helping her the whole time but not externally like how we saw Mushu or any of the other ancestors to her, but I guess awakened within her. And then I'm thinking about the Sword of David and sorry, well, I guess it's the Sword of David now. The Sword of Goliath and like the strength and everything and the size and the scale and how almost like nonsensical or ridiculous. But again, it's that energy of like there's been a time of preparation and like um in that time once to become strong enough to do the thing. It was also interesting because the world card came out in that reading and there was a lion in the world card, and from that perspective of like looking at her for the lion, it was very much like from the world we can see that there's more to it than just the lion. Like the lion felt like such a big grandiose type of energy, and not to take anything away from it, but it's like there's more. And the part of that that's interesting was that whole like what we consider to be giants from our scale and size and perspective, like there are beings, entities, energies that are even like grander than what's a giant to us. It's just a giant to us because of how small we are. And so that kind of sort of came in a way too. So I have given all of these a pre-shuffle. I was gonna do it on camera, but I was like, nah, I'll do it. I'll take care of it before. Also, I was using the witch's tarot, and I haven't used it in a hot minute. It doesn't fit the theme really, besides the Lion in the World card, I guess. Um, but I think I'll pull 3 cards and just set them down, and then we'll look at them later. Excuse me. Also, I have the TV fortune cards. I'm assuming there's a big cat in there, and there's a lot of cards. So we could start there, but I don't think we will. And that's just what we'll do. So the card before will be, I want to say, the card after. I kind of want to play on that lesson and gift framework. So the card before will be like what we've gained, or like the space of kind of like a lesson learned, something that we've come into. And then the card after will be something on top of that, right? I feel like there are so many ways in which it makes sense, but that it might not necessarily be easy to put words to. It's almost like additional benefits, right? Excuse me, like perks, right? Like you don't do something for the perks, but because you are a member or whatever, you get these extra perks. Like if you join a fitness program, then you get discounts on things. Or if you bank somewhere, then you get discounts on like local entertainment, or if you live in a certain community. You know what I mean? Like the perks. So we're gonna do these first. We're gonna move these over here. First, I wanted to take a breath. So because I'm a little hype. And every now and then breathing is just like beneficial. You know what I mean? Taking a breath, taking a beat. Also, like it's fine. Okay. The mystical shaman is at the bottom of the mystical shaman. Also, when I was shuffling the wild unknown animal spirits, 2 cards came out. It was the vulture and the owl. And it caught my attention because we saw the owl quite a bit. Um, I've already shuffled these. We saw the owl quite a bit, and in the Mother of Swords, and then somewhere else. And it was very like, okay. But when it came out behind the vulture, also the lion was at the bottom of the wild unknown animal spirits. And I think, actually, now that I think about it, it felt like the lion was maybe not a scavenger, not the lion, the owl wasn't a scavenger, but like if there's a trial of the lion and there's an element of affinity, it's like people that made, which is funny because it was like the ritual of the lion, the trial of the lion. It's like if you're innocent, then you'll survive. If you're guilty, the lion will eat you. But it was very like for those who may not pass the trial of the lion, they may pass the trial of like the owl. And from one hand, it could look like a scavenger picking off, or, but it's again because it's about an affinity, it's about alignment. And just because it doesn't align to the owl, to the lion doesn't mean whatever, right? So which is interesting because I feel like it was Massa Confusa, Chaos, and the Wild Unknown Alchemy. It had to be within the past few months because it was after I came back from visiting family. There was that energy there too of, I think it was owls. Was it owls or was it the vultures? I don't, because there were the vultures that were waiting for the people. I think it was in that abyss void type energy. And there were like individuals who showed promise and they were being like scouted, noticed by another. And so it was like, hold off, vultures. Like, let's see what they do. Right? They're not dead yet type energy. And I guess that's interesting because I watched, it had to be an anime. Was that an anime? It was, I feel like it was an anime, but for some reason, I want to say it was like a person, like a live action human being that was very like someone who was like so hungry or like in the alleyway that like the rats thought that they were dead or something and like almost came in and like start eating them or something. But it was one of those like their life did a I was gonna say traumatic, not tragic, tremendous. I feel like there's a T word that's like tremendous, terrific, but something else. Transition. And so like they ended up, it was like a 180. And I want to say if like someone's to that point that like the rats started to like thought they were dead and were gonna get a nibble, I'm like that couldn't have been real life. But honestly, could be. I don't remember. Anyway, so I'm not gonna get these first. I'm going to, we ended up just flowing over here. I do want to get three cards. I'm going to keep them face down until the end, and we'll just pull the top three. We'll put them right here from the Witch's Tarot, the minis. We'll put the bottom card over here. I will look at the bottom of the deck because why not? It's the Page of Wands. There's a, is it? This deck, there are a few decks where it's like you'll notice something, like you'll have a deck for years and not notice something. I'm like fairly certain I've never noticed the cat that is next to the Page of Wands. There's a cat right there. I don't even know if he notices the cat. This was like the Witch's Tarot, the other one was the second deck I got. So I've had this deck for a while. It took me years to notice the angel in the lovers. I mean, my eyes were what they were. Like for the longest time, it was just like clouds, I guess. And then I was like, wait, like that's an angel. Interesting. It's also interesting because, and I watched it today, there's this new anime that's out right now this season. It's like the Cat and the Dragon or something like that. And there are these Kate She, I think it's called like a Kate She, um, or a Kate Sith. Yeah, Kate She. CAITSITH, maybe. CAIT space SITH. And they're like an intelligent cat. Not that, that they use like magic and stuff. And you'll see them kind of sort of depicted different. I feel like honestly, this is the only show I've seen at Kate She where they like kind of just look like cats, right? Usually they're like bipedal and they have like clothes and stuff. Um, but the there's a story, there's a whole bunch of history, and there comes to be a town in a kingdom. The Kate are like hunted for their fur. There's a dragon, an orphan dragon that was raised by a Kate. So he thought he was a cat for, however long. The Kate were hunted for their fur by people. And then it was one of those, like, if it were for sustenance or whatever, that would be one thing because, with the rules of nature, you got to eat to survive. Sometimes you're the meal, sometimes you get a meal. But, like, for fur or whatever, for something that's not related to survival, that was just like, whatever. So tensions were strained until a Kate befriended a human, and one place also was summoned, and another place befriended a human. And after that, like some of the cats, the forest cats, move into the town, right? Because there are some people who, again, that energy of like affinity, there are people who aren't the type of people to just hunt for sport and fashion, right? Or like they're not the monstrous kind of humans. They're like friendly. And so, specifically, the royal family, there's a cat that, they just end up bonding with. But I think there are also other people in that country, in that town, and they like venture together. That's how you can tell it's someone from that town because they're accompanied by a KC. And literally, like, I literally just watched like episode 4, like a few hours ago, maybe. And so to see the cat accompanying this young adventurer, I'm like, wow. Also, again, I've never seen that. The moon is under that. Also, that was another energy. The moon, uh, it was the moon and the hermit again, and it gave me that Pisces Virgo. And at the time, I was like, maybe this is Pisces season and Virgo season. Cue to now, where the nodes are about to shift out of Pisces Virgo. I was like, okay, but it brought up Psyche and Cupid. And the interesting thing about it bringing up Psyche and Cupid is that's kind of what it was at the time. Before it was like Bodhisattvic, Elijah, Enochi, and whatever, it was like Psyche Cupid of like, I mean, that was a precursor, maybe. It's more accurate to call it a precursor. Or just like a related sort of energy. Psyche was a mortal who fell in love with Cupid, who was a god. Could not look at him because, mortals cannot lay eyes upon divine beings if they don't want to lose their sight or to go through some kind of excruciating pain, right? You see it across many different things. It's come out recently, and I talked about it through the lens of Supernatural, where Castiel was following Dean, and then there was the seer that Dean hired or went to try to see who and what was following him. And Castiel tried to avert her gaze, but she would not look away, and her eyes burned out of her, like inside of her head, just like because to behold a divine being. And I mean, I felt like she was cool about it afterwards in the show. But I mention it because, and this is where the video starts. Um, it was that energy of even what the live before the last one, which is interesting because with like the whole miracle thing, Mortifacto in reverse to come back from the underworld, it was also Anana Ishtar. I was like, why can't I remember? It was Anana Ishtar, Cupid Psyche, when Anana reascended from the underworld and became Ishtar. And it's like because she became more than what she was when she went down there, it doesn't violate the laws of this and this. I mean, it could be like this would be easier, but it's this. It's like the laws that govern the world. upper world, middle world, lower world, mortals can't return from the dead, but she returned as Ishtar. She returned as Moor, and it gave that energy again. And I just recently it's been Eurydice and Orpheus. The miracle is that Orpheus completes his task and Eurydice is reborn, but to preserve the laws, she returns as something more than mortal because no mortal can leave the underworld, especially once they go down there because they've died, right? And Psyche, as a mortal, couldn't be with Cupid, a god, so she became more than mortal. She became a goddess, goddess, so that her and Cupid could be together. So I was like, interesting that like becoming more than mortal was there. Cool. Anyway, all right, let's go. I just thought that was interesting because literally with the Temperance card, I think in the Orisha Tarot, it was that energy of like becoming more than mortal. And then when I was watching back that 4-4, it was like Cupid and Psyche. I was like, oh my gosh, even that energy is there. There were so many energies that were like there then when I had no idea that the like, excuse me, Pisces Virgo sort of axis would be this nodal point. Now that we're at the end of it, especially. So we've been being prepared this whole time, whether we've known it or not, to do something. And again, like saving China is such a like sort of Goliath level, whatever. And the like Mulan is such like a sort of Goliath, especially against like Attila the Hun. But she did it, right? Cool. I guess we'll start with the archeo archetypes, the well-known animal spirits, then the mystical shaman oracle cards. I don't think I have any other decks that feature a big cat in the title. Um, we'll give it a, I guess one of these. Who was that? The Heraith and the Inventor, or the Poet? The Poet. The Heraith and the Poet. Interesting. All right, cut. Pulling from the bottom of the deck. Is this Mobius? We got Mobius. Is this in reverse? Are all these in reverse? I can't tell if these are in reverse or not. Yeah, these are in reverse. I can tell because with the Star Climber, it's like I don't think ladders descend from the sky. I think they go up. Yeah, so let's flip this over. There we go. We have Mobius, the Hypocrite, and Grace. I feel like Mobius, the Hypocrite, and Grace, again, it's giving that energy of like the open ceremony, the shadow of the divine that is within those temples. Um, it's the truth amidst the performance and the fiction and the. It's like, I don't know, you'd be. I feel like some people would be surprised to know how many people sit in positions within systems, beliefs, and structures that they don't believe in. You know what I mean? But even in those, even in the places in which they hold like presence, the divine can still be found. Or you can find it's like an echo. And then it's like you hear it and you'll find it. And then, it's like, whoa, I thought I was just up here acting, playing. Yeah, this was in reverse. Excuse me. The moon cat. Now, I did specify I'm looking for big cats. I mean, the moon cat could be a big cat, even though it looks like a house cat. I'm not gonna take it, but it's the title card and the moon cat, and then the arbiter. It's interesting because there's nothing on this blank card, and the arbiter is blindfolded. The arbiter would be the like the perk of this, and the moon cat. It's like to the moon cat, this card isn't blank, but to everyone else, the card is. The moon cat like marches to the beat of its own drum, and it doesn't look like it's really doing anything or going anywhere because we don't see what the moon cat sees, but in reality, it's not that there's a method to the madness, but whoa, there's another blank card? How many? Wait, I'm like, wait, how many blank cards are in this deck? Are there supposed to be multiple blank? You want to know something like crazy? It's fine. No, I'll say it. It's fine. Let's keep going. That's not what we're here for today. So before the lion, we have the wanderer. Then there's the lion. And then we have duende after. Okay. Um, we'll put these here at the top because I don't want to clutter this space. Also, today is ICC number 2776. 2776. And I was like, oh, 1,000 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In my brain, it was just like, oh, like 1,000 years after America became a thing. And then I was like, wait, is that right? Because it's only like 2026. And I was like, well, it's only been 150 years. So I was like, well, 1,000 years? Girl, imagine. To some nations, 1,000 years ain't nothing. And it's interesting how, I guess, that relative time scale is interesting, especially politically. And not politically necessary in terms of getting like super political, but politically in a way of like relations between nations. We're 250 years. We're a quarter of the way to 1,000 years, 250, which is interesting because there's also been the energy of like milestones, right? With the contract, right? It was like once you reach a certain milestone, then you're paid out like 25%, and then 50%, 75%. So we're 25% of the way to 2776 this year, which is still, I'm like, 1,000 years is crazy. Um, but anyway, because like it'll be America and like China or Iran or some other place. And they'll be like, well, like our history goes back millennia. So even if we're going through whatever we're going through right now, like there were hundreds and thousands of years before America was even a thing. And like culturally, we've been here and we've been fine. And it's kind of that, it's like a comparative whatever. And again, it's like it's to not necessarily to focus on the political aspect of it, but more so like the relative time. For example, you have a young 18 to 30-year-old talking to an elder. And to that young 18 to 30-year-old, 2 to 5 years. I feel like by the time you're 35 years, 2 to 5 years ain't necessarily. Maybe you got to cross 30 after 30, right? I feel like before 30. But when you're younger, like 2 to 5 years is a long time because it's a more significant portion of your lifespan. But after you live for like decades and decades and decades longer, it's like that 2 to 5 years becomes less and less and less of your relative life. And so even with that, there's just like there's a greater context and understanding that kind of trivializes some things that could be like huge. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Anyway, I say that what reminded me is because there's like this caliper. I'm pretty sure this is a caliper, right? Above the lion. And that's what reminded me of the like it's 250 out of 1,000. From the 1776 to 2776, we're at the 2026. The Wanderer and Duende. Okay. Interesting. I kind of am I have all the books. Should I just read the tales for now? I'll read the tales for now and then we'll get into it later. How about that? So the tale of the wanderer, how we find the lion or the lesson in finding the lion. A map ran tattooed across her skin, a reminder of the paths her Romani tribe had once traveled. It's so interesting that it's Romani because I was looking through videos and I called the deck what it's called at the time I saw the video, but the last time I used it, I called it the Onset Romani Tarot. And it's funny because like I'm watching myself and I was like, "Ooh, girl, I just used that deck." And I called it the Osset Romani Tarot instead of the Osset G Word Tarot. And it's one of those things that, like, until you know, you don't necessarily know. But now that I know, I try to be respectful. And I feel like that's the thing to me, like, when it comes to PC, woke culture, whatever, to me, it's just like being respectful to people. And I feel like it's really interesting how quick we can be to dismiss other people, but we ourselves never, ever, ever want to be dismissed or generalized and lumped into a group with other people. You know what I mean? It is, I mean, the hypocrite did come out. It can be a little hypocritical. Anyway, a map ran tattooed across her skin, a reminder of the paths her Romani tribe had once traveled. Not up and down in straight lines between here and there, but in subtle curves that edged and split the well trod highways. Sorry, there are a lot of dashes there. Some derisively, some derisively called her gypsy, but it did not bother her. It was a proud acknowledgement of ancestry, not an insult. Well, there you go. I think that's the thing too. Anyway, the wanderers sang and spoke histories, not the schoolbook tales written by wealthy victors, but the true stories of those who fought and died for love and valor. She was all of the people, and they were embodied in her. Interesting. I think that's the thing too. I mean, just in that same on the same vein of like just being respectful. And if people want to reclaim certain words, it's for them to like they get to make that choice. And the iced coffee is gone already. It was starting to get warm anyway. So um and I think sometimes I don't know, I can hold appreciation. Maybe because again, to me it's just like about being respectful to people. So if I'm made aware of something, it's like okay, I can Like that's the least I can do, because I would want to be respected. And so I can act respectfully towards another. But I think sometimes it's that, like, but that's the thing, right? In spaces where people aren't in the conversation, in spaces where you're having a conversation about someone else, I feel like it's fair to err on the side of respect. And if someone of that community or whatever steps forward and they're like, hey, like, actually, for me, you know, this is something that I'm proud of. This is something that I've reclaimed. This is something that I own. Then that's that. And I think sometimes there can be like a mocking attitude towards like the hyper vigilance, what could be seen as the hyper vigilance of another. But again, I don't know. Anyway, because yeah. All right. So what's interesting about that is though, because I was like this, like it doesn't travel in straight lines. It's like curves that edge and split the well-trodden highways. It was the moon cat. It was the blank card, the moon cat, and then the card that was after the moon cat that I literally just saw minutes ago that I already forgot. The arbiter. Um, it's kind of that energy where again, she has the map on her body. And so even if from the outside you're like she's supposed to be retracing whatever, she's supposed to be on this journey to do whatever, like why is she making all these twists and turns and whatever, like that's the direction in which the map is leading her, the map that she sees that we don't necessarily see. You know what I mean? Like there's a point, a purpose, and a reason. And that's the very thing that sort of puts her in alignment or exemplifies that affinity. That's what gets her in the vicinity of this lion energy, is following that path. And it's interesting because, excuse me, for her, it's ancestral, right? The duende's tale. Sometimes I see the duende in the glimpse of a sparrow's eye, or in a painting, or in the shade of a passing galaxy. But mostly I just feel it. I feel it out there, just beyond the edges of our furthest vision. Gold and Prussian blue, wheels of ebony trimmed with steel cobwebs, rotating cogs, clockwork turning out sparks against an infinite sky. It tastes of brimstone and smells like moss and fireworks in the night. It sounds both silent and saxophone, and its almost touch against my skin is so exquisite that I can barely bring myself to purr. To purr? And we talking about big cats. Wait. Anyway, it's because we just saw the Hiraeth. What was it? Where was the Hiraeth? It was the Hiraeth and the poet. The thing about the Hiraeth, like the Duende, the Hiraeth is like longing for a home that you don't know. It's like this feeling that you don't have a conscious context to place. And it's like the Duende is similar in some ways, it sounds, but you can like feel it more viscerally. So if it is like a home or a life that you've never lived, but you kind of get this nagging feeling, the Duende would be like a whole vision. And it's a vision accompanied with like the feelings and the warmth. And so even if you don't, it's like even if you know that you haven't experienced it in your lifetime, it's so like vivid and complete. And you almost like you kind of know. And so it's interesting again to have this energy literally on the other side of the maps that are tattooed on her body of her peoples. And she can feel it so intensely that it almost makes her want to purr when it almost touches her. And again, it's like the lion. You know what I mean? And that came out in context of the mooncat. Like the way that the wanderer wanders is very akin to the mooncat. Also, this is it's gonna be a little weird, but follow me here, okay? So the Kate are mystical, magical creatures. They're magical creatures, right? They're not just like house cats. They're not like ordinary cats. They're magical. They even like part of their magic is transformation. There's one that wants to be a human adventurer. When they're a kitten, like when they leave, it's like, what do you want to be? And one of them's like, I want to be a human. And everybody's like, but you're a cat. How are you supposed to be? It's like, I hate to break it to you, but like, you're not a human. You're a cat. You're a Kate she, so you're not like an ordinary cat, but you're still a cat. And then the kitten uses transformation magic, and it becomes a human. It's like, oh, well, I guess you can be a human. So it's almost like that cat, the Kate she that lives life as a human, has a child with a human. And so the child, raised as a human, maybe for generations upon generations, they're raised as humans, or maybe it's like when they reach a certain age, then the truth of their lineage is revealed to them. And that's another thing about this anime is the way that it uses time, because it is told like chronologically for the most part, but there are so many like gaps in time. Like you'll see an episode where a prince was like a baby, and then in the next episode it's like several generations ago. You know what I mean? And on like the magical side, especially with the dragon, again with that relative lifespan, relative time, energy, the dragon is so old and the lifespan of a dragon is so long that for him it was like, well, in the last episode it's like what feels like yesterday or a few years ago, but on the human side of things there's been like several generations. um and I think there were even like generations between the antagonism of when the dragon originally stepped in so that people would stop hunting the forest cats for fur, and when the forest cats started moving into the cities. It was like several generations. And when it first started happening, the people in the city were terrified because they were like, we don't want the dragon to come back and like. But anyway, so it's like within the context of that, like this wanderer within the metaphor of that it's like Kate She people. The wanderer traces the same steps as that mooncat. And that's why when this feeling draws near, as she's walking the trails of her people, she almost wants to purr type energy. So in a way, it goes beyond affinity in some way. Cool. What does that mean? I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm just the dude that read the cards. And again, it's so interesting to me when like, because some of these I'll get some low hanging fruit. There are the ways in which it could resonate. Some of these I just like kind of leave it as it is, and then I'm kind of like, what? But then like life happens, or like several years later, we'll come back 3 years and some change. That was like 3 years and a few months ago, from 4/4/2023 to 7/18/2026. Anyway, ooh, okay. As we're literally talking about the dragon and the deer, with the bee at the bottom of the deck. Interesting. Take from this what you will. We see the whale at the cut with the bee, and then the cosmic egg with the bee. All right. I've already shuffled all of these, but hey. Let's go. We got the deer, the cheetah. The cheetah is a big cat. Ooh, girl. We're getting multiple big cats. And the tiger is another big cat. I was just looking at the lion. I specifically said big cat cards. Apparently, I forgot that there's like the cheetah and the tiger and the water known animal spirits. But these are like staggered, right? So before the cheetah is the deer, and that the gift from the deer is the tiger, which in of itself is preceded by the cheetah. So ultimately, you get the firefly. Now, because the firefly is the firefly, and especially here, it's like this goes beyond the wanderer discovering like big cat lineage or Keiichi lineage. Because of the firefly. And it's interesting. Also, was that the title of that video? Or was it the other video? One second. Because there was something about power. Like Grantor of Power was somewhere. And I was like, that's interesting because the energy, it is the lion spread. What's the title? The lion spread, Grantor of Power and Righter of Wrongs. Which also, Sword of Goliath, Righter of Wrongs, interesting. Grantor of Power with this like words of power energy that's been like kind of here. The energy of power has been fairly pervasive for the past little bit. As I've said, like I think I said, like there's this new like synchronicity that's kind of sort of coming up, and I don't know what it is. It was related to like power, and it's like all of a sudden like powers everywhere, and then it was at like words of power. So with words of power in the metaphorical context image of a circuit, right? You have your power source, and then you have the circuitry. The circuit is the path through which that power flows. And as the power flows, it generates that current of electricity and it powers whatever you connect to it, right? So it's almost like retracing the steps on this map, on the map that's tattooed on her with the Wanderer, is to create the circuit so that when that Perth pear tree cosmic surge happens, it's like it's already constructed. And so the firefly, you see like the light on the firefly, that's when the power that's on it's like the circuit, the loop is closed and the power turns on type energy. Now it all started with the deer, and it's funny how it's like the gift from one is the lesson or prerequisite of another, right? Because these big cats are connected again. So as the significator, excuse me, the cheetah isn't necessarily like being read, but it is what comes before the tiger again. Yeah, I need to just like, as I've said, like I want to go full whimsy. But sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to like ground this a little bit because people be like, what is he talking about? You know what I mean? Now I'm like, do I gotta go through this whole deck? Because how many big cats are in here? I think it's just these three. We have the hawk, the lion, the spider web, the panther, and the swan. There's another big cat that I completely forgot about. Now, instead of them being immediately connected, like the cheetah and the tiger, the spider web is in between them. I'm just going to keep going. I think that's all the big cats. Bottom of the deck was the bear, which is interesting because of that hibernation. Was that not also a message recently? I know it was. I'm fairly certain it was. I'm like 95% sure it was, but I don't remember the context in which it came out. It was like the end of hibernation, like something had been hibernating and it's like waking up. And again, what's interesting about this firefly and what's interesting about that connection here, it was the ancestor that was within Mulan. Now, because I knew I was reading the lion and because when I was like, I think I'll pull the tea leaf fortune cards, I feel like there has to be a big cat in there, even though I can't consciously think of one right now. It made me think of the foo dogs in the mythical creature oracle cards and how they're supposed to be based off of a lion. But so there were tales of a person, maybe the Buddha, taming the untamable lions, but like nobody knew what a lion was. And the foo dog is what we got from the lion. It's like it was the lion that was created by peoples that had never seen a lion. And I was like, well, technically, since they're not lions, and I'm sure there are like, I feel like in the in the mythical creatures, you get like there's the Myrmico lion, which is like a lion plus an ant. You have like your Sphinxy manticore. I feel like it's not just a lion, like the griffin that has like the back of a lion and the front of a bird. Anyway, I decided not to use it. So here, it's interesting too that we begin and end with birds. So the hawk is the prerequisite to the lion, and after the lion, the gift is the spider web. And then the spider web is the precursor to the panther, whose gift is the swan. I feel like this makes sense in a way. So The hawk has this bird's, not only does it have a bird's eye view perspective, but it's also known for the keenness of its sight and its perception. And so for the precursor type energy or lesson learned to be like this bird's eye view, there's also like a divine element to the hawk. So there's like this sort of divine element with this perception, bird's eye view, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure it was the strength card in the Orisha Tarot where I'm like 99% sure. It was the strength card, and in the symbolism, it was that vantage point and viewpoint from the trees. And so it's not surprising that we get this bird's eye view plus keen perception of the hawk that leads to the spider web. And the spider web is like the knowledge of the connectedness of all things. And so, following, it's not surprising that after we see everything with that spider web, next, courtesy of the panther, we get the swan, but it's the reflection of the swan. Hold up, I'm trying to like, there we go. That's the best I can do. Then it's like we see our place in everything. And I feel like beyond seeing our place in everything, there's something more that's here. There were 5 big cats in the water known animal spirits. Again, I was like, this is big cat energy. I thought I was just looking for the lion. We got the cheetah, the tiger, the lion, and the panther. I feel like this is kind of, again, where we were last time. Because it was that whole, there was the stillness, but in the standstill, there was an elevation. And it was important to practice stillness, patience, understanding, and like the wisdom that is gathered in that because of how easily we can like do too much or whatever. And again, I feel like we kind of see that here with the hawk leading to the spider, leading to the swan. And it makes me think like sometimes people like go into nature or we have these experiences where we see like the grandness of the universe or the world and we feel so small that we almost feel like nothing. But I feel like this, it is seeing ourselves relative to everything else. It is like seeing ourselves in the grand scheme of all things, but it feels like it goes beyond that as well, in a way. Okay. No, I'm pretty sure I don't have to look through every single card of the Mystical Shaman Oracle cards. I'm pretty sure it's just the Jaguar. Maybe I should look through all of these just in case. The medicine wheel just made an appearance. Like the dragon made an appearance. The medicine wheel made an appearance. last cut. So we have flow, the moon, and completion as the bottom three cards here. Flow and the moon is an interesting combination because the moon pulls the tides. Also, feminine cycles sync. They don't necessarily. Well, yeah, they kind of sync to the moon, right? But why would there be a completion with this flow? It's fine. All right, we're looking for the jaguar. The coyote is not a cat, not a big cat. Sure, let's look through the deck. Why not? We pretty much end up looking through the entire deck anyway. Yeah, we end up looking through the entire deck anyway. Before the jaguar is the spiral. After the jaguar is the serpent. And then we have the child after the serpent, which is the last card. So it was the third card from the top of the deck. The child is before, thunder is after. See, the thunder child. This is so interesting. And the staff. The thunder child is interesting because I'm pretty sure in that same reading we saw the drum. Did I use the mystical shaman oracle cards? We saw the drum. And the whole thing was so with the Wankantanka, Wakinyan, the Thunderbird, it was a story of the bear, the leader of humans, which is akin to the king or the royal family, and the cat and the dragon. Um, the drums were blessed, right? And it came out recently. And when it came out, I was like, what's this about? But it came out in a way of like their drums are played in a way that they were originally taught, in the same way of like the wanderer retracing her ancestral roots and pathways, roadways. That drum was played in a way that reminded Wakinyan of the first time it heard those drums played by men back when Tatanka, before Tatanka was a member of the Wankantanka. And Wakinyan recognized the person. It's been alive through their lineage, or it was kept alive in their lineage. And so to have like the child of thunder is like, whoa, because it was a Thunderbird, right? Is there a drum? Yeah, there is a drum, right? I'm pretty sure. Flow, the moon, and completion. The moon, flow and the moon is it being kept alive in these unseen places in the blood. Completion could be the honoring of something, the completion of something. Yeah, because it was again in a similar vein to the wanderer retracing those pathways, which is creating the circuit through for that power to flow through. The spiral and the serpent. It was preceded by the spiral, followed by the serpent. Now, to be completely fair and transparent, The book for the mystical shaman oracle cards, for me, to me, I'm more times less helpful than helpful, honestly. But I'm gonna consult it today. The spiral, the essence. From galaxies in the sky to diminutive shells at the beach, the spiral is found extensively in the natural world. Its shape in the form of a coiled serpent has been used since ancient times as a tool for growth and transformation. The spiral is a guide for entering deep into one's consciousness and the unknown, and then extending far out into the heavens. It is crucial to surrender to this journey until the exhausted paradigm dissolves in the depths of the psyche and its energy is released to give birth to a new reality. Dissolving psyche and giving birth to a new reality. We're at the top of this because I rewatched it. The reason why I did just look at these cards up here because I was like, man, it's almost time to flip them over. I saw the Page of Wands when I was reaching for this book. Um, Psyche and Cupid. Psyche was dissolved and reborn, like the mortal Psyche was dissolved and reborn as the goddess Psyche, so that she could be with Cupid. Also, what part was it? Entering deep into one's consciousness and the unknown, and then extending far out into the heavens. And then we have the serpent that extends into the heavens and it also digs deep. It does both. But also the spiral being the coiled serpent when Mobius was the archetype at the bottom of the deck. Mobius was the archetype at the bottom of the deck. The coiled serpent right there. But this is the coiled serpent before it lost its legs. Right? With the occurrences of the Garden of Eden, the after the serpent convinced Eve, and then Eve convinced Adam, and things went down, the serpent was cursed to slither on its belly. So, in order to be cursed to slither on its belly, there had to be a point in which it wasn't on its belly. And I'm pretty sure snakes have pelvises. It's a vestigial structure within snakes. Because, like, why would they need a pelvis? They don't have legs. You know what I mean? Snake pelvis. Snakes do not walk, but primitive species like boas and pythons retain internal remnants of a pelvis, a femur, and external claw-like protrusions called pelvic spurs. These structures are evolutionary leftovers from limbed lizard-like ancestors. Because modern snakes rely on their spines and abdominal muscles for slithering, these internal bones no longer aid in walking. Instead, male snakes use these spurs to clasp, tickle, and stimulate females during mating. Okay, didn't know we were necessarily going all the way there, but it's fine. See, the energy of the vestigial structure is interesting, especially when we have this wanderer with this ancestry, the ancestral energy surrounding this wanderer. Didn't that come out? It came out fairly recently. The energy of like vestigial structures. Maybe there's something vestigial within us, generally, colloquially. I will make it specific. There may be something vestigial within you that it's like so much time has passed. Again, with the relative time, whatever, our lives are relatively so short that we go through generation upon generation upon generation within the lifespan are within the lifetime of a single other organism, entity, creature. Right. Like, for example, like trees that are so old that they've been around for like thousands of years type energy. I don't know how long whales live, but there are organisms that have lifespans that one of their lives is like several of our generations, to the point where that like they would remember things that we've long forgotten. There's something deemed vestigial maybe within you or your lineage line that you discover isn't. It awakens within you. Okay, I'm not gonna give these another shuffle. Now I'm gonna look through the entire tea leaf fortune cards. I'm gonna look through all of these to see if we got any big cats. Bottom of the deck is bull. Do not back down from opposition. Show strength and fortitude. Bull. Owl. Good advice from a wise person. And caterpillar. Things will not always be this way. A change is coming. I feel like a change is coming. Things will not always be this way is the reason why it's do not back down from opposition. Show strength and fortitude. Um, let's just put them in the bag. Ugh. Oh, they come with the bag. I'll just put them in the bag because this is going to be a lot of cards to try to deal with slipping and sliding on this tiny surface. How do I do this? I guess I'll do it like this. I'll hold on to it with my pinky and I'll just toss them in there as I look, as I go. So we got, I'm just going to, um, the butterfly. I mean, I guess I could call these out, but it's fine. This may be the first time I actually looked through all these cards. And I didn't want to look in the guidebook. I wanted to do it naturally and organically. I feel like there should be a big cat in here, right? If I call these out, this part may be more interesting, but hey. So I'm getting a few, I'm taking a few off the top, and then I'm putting them in the bag. Maybe. There's a cat. So the cat is in between the pineapple and the flute. The flute, disappointment in a friend or lover. Pineapple, reconciliation. Interesting. It's the cat isn't a big cat, so I'm going to keep going. But there was a disappointment in a friend or lover, and now there's reconciliation. Maybe it's just I don't know, interesting. That's very interesting for personal reasons. You ever surprise yourself and then you're like, well, I have grown and healed and matured a lot. So it took a while to get me here type energy. I don't even think we're halfway through this yet. Money path. What? Money path with a 4-leaf clover. Okay. For some reason, it takes me back to the dead end not really being a dead end. With money path and the 4-leaf clover, it's almost like there's this image of it's at night. It's nighttime. It's dark. There's a full moon, but it's so cloudy that you can't really see. You don't get the illumination of the full moon, but it's like you're somewhere. The clouds that were blocking the moon move, and under that full moon, like you see something in the night that you didn't see before. Excuse me. It's not daytime. And I feel like that's important. Well, it's just like in daytime, even if it's so cloudy that you don't see the sun, it's daytime, so you can still see. Your visibility isn't as impacted as it is in the nighttime when the moon is the only thing that we have that gives us that illumination. The clouds part and you see something that you didn't see before. And I don't, it almost more so feels like it reveals itself to you. There are so many. I mean, I guess we saw. Here we go. I almost put it in the bag. So we have the wedge. Someone is trying to come between you and the friend or something you want. The wedge. I'll put these in the bag. The lion. Time to act. And the gong. An exciting event. Someone is trying to come between you and a friend or something you want, and then there's an exciting event. And it's interesting because with the cat, we had disappointment in a friend or lover and then reconciliation. Here, there was a wedge. Interesting. Now, I'm assuming that's going to be the only big cat we get, but we might see a tiger. So I'm going to keep going. I was just starting to think. I mean, we did see a cat, so maybe that's the only big cat. I was like, there has to be a big cat in here. Certainly. It's the tea leaf fortune cards. There has to be at least a lion. There may be a tiger. Yep, here's the tiger. Purse, pay attention to your finances. Tiger, doing something risky, taking a chance. And wishbone, a wish is granted. I'll show you in a second. I feel like that would be it, right? A lion and a tiger. Now there's a mountain road with a chain. I only mentioned the mountain road because we saw a money path. Interesting. I'm seeing months that interest me. After July was March. So there could be something going on now that maybe got something to do with March. Or maybe there was something in March that got something to do with now. Cool. So, purse, pay attention to your finances with wishbone. A wish is granted. The interesting thing about paying attention to your finances and then a wish is granted is it almost gives. I feel like with the tiger here, pay attention to your finances and a wish is granted. It's almost very like our attention is being called to something because something is about to happen, something is about to move, something is about to transpire. We have with the lion an exciting event. And it feels like our attention is being drawn to something so that after the thing happens, we know. I feel like this clarification doesn't need to be, I would assume it doesn't need to be said right now, which is also interesting because I was like, Eight of Pentacles, the first decan of Virgo. Not only is that where the North Node is before it transits out of Virgo, it's a South Node. Not only is that where the South Node is before it transits out of Virgo and into Leo, but also 6 weeks from whenever I did that. Hey, if I got any pull, any sway, any good karma, let's work together to try to get you a miracle. The 6 weeks took us to the top of Virgo season, either the tail end of Leo season or the top of Virgo season. If you see that and we energetically work together to get you a miracle, the miracle is from the divine. It's not a Patrick thing. I feel like, again, that's one of those things that doesn't need to be said. But just like to make that clear, you know? But anyway, it's like your attention is being drawn to something so that when it changes, it's like you know it was the divine that did it. And whatever happens to get from point A to point B, you will know. So if there's something that your intuition and discernment leads you and guides you to, when that miracle comes in, it's like not only is that for you to know that the divine is the one behind that miracle, but also to give yourself credit for the things that you did in following and abiding by that. Right? So that you can, like, not only does it build trust in your intuition and discernment, but hopefully trust in your own like capabilities or your ability to follow and be, I want to say, in strengthened, but I know that's not a word, to follow and grow stronger, to rise to the occasion. Like that's the part that you do. And so also like acknowledge yourself in that. I feel like I'm such a big proponent of like acknowledging the things that you, even when we acknowledge the divine and the miraculous ways in which the divine moves, like we acknowledge the things that we do as well, because like the divine does all of the heavy lifting, but it's like you still have to be in a place to receive it, right? Anyway, I feel like that's what this is. Someone trying to come between you and a friend or something you want, an exciting event, pay attention to your finances, a wish is granted. With the gong and the wishbone, this wish may be granted in a way where you can't necessarily keep it silent. And if it happens in that way, I feel like it's supposed to happen that way. It's supposed to be loud. It's supposed to garner attention so that when people ask you or come to you or whatever, you can direct them in the way that is for them to go, which is intuition, discernment, follow the divine, right? It's the power of like testimony outside of braggadocio or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's the word I want. Interesting. Reconciliation, wish granted, exciting events. Cool. Is that everything? I think that is everything on the table. Are we gonna flip these cards now? I mean, I feel like there's nothing else to do. So yeah. So what do we have as a recap? I should timestamp this recap. Should, but I won't. Maybe I will. I will. Why not? Set up, pulling, recap, attempt, attempted recap at, ooh, I can't see. 132.05. We'll say 132.20. Okay. I'm like 5 seconds. 2, 1. All right. So to attempt a recap, I did say we would actually read the attributes of this, but that's fine. So we're looking for the big cats, right? In the archeo archetypes, there was the lion. Before the lion is the wanderer. After the lion is the duende. Before the lion, the tale of the wanderer is one of someone retracing the steps of her people. And in her retracing the steps of her people, it's not a straight line, of course. There are curves, and I feel like because the landscape has changed from antiquity to today, antiquity generally being when those steps were first taken by her people. Um, because not only the landscape, but also like time, there may be certain stops or certain points where it very much so gives me like back in the day, this would have been a place that her people could have gone to in the spring because of the migration pattern of something else, or because of, or it's like in the summer, right? Maybe they would travel nearer to the water because it's like fairly cooler, right? The ability for bodies of water, especially larger bodies of water, to regulate the temperature in the space around them. But it's like because the landscape has changed, like because the landscape has changed, that body of water may have like dried up or turned into something else. Those migratory patterns of whatever would that would have been like the reason why they stopped where they stopped back in the day. It's like that they don't migrate anymore. Or it's like, there are other ways to get cool. And so these days we wouldn't necessarily go to a larger body of water. We just turn on the AC if we have AC that works. Central air, the air con. And so it's almost like that's what fuels it almost like doesn't look like it makes any sense, but that's through the context and the lens of today. but it did, right? And as she's doing that, you could say the voice of her people gets like louder and louder. It resonates louder and louder within her because that's the duende. The duende is, I'll just read it again because I feel like it puts it so nicely and succinctly in a way that I can't paraphrase or encapsulate. The duende's tale. Sometimes I see the duende in the glimpse of a sparrow's eyes, or in a painting, or in the shade of a passing galaxy. But mostly I just feel it. I feel it out there, just beyond the edges of our furthest vision. Gold and Prussian blue, wheels of ebony trimmed with steel cobwebs, rotating cogs, clockwork turning out sparks against an infinite sky. It tastes of brimstone and smells like moss and fireworks in the night. It sounds both silent and saxophone, and its almost touch against my skin is so exquisite that I can barely bring myself to purr. So then from there, we headed over to the Wild Unknown Animal Spirits, in which there were five big cats and not just the lion that I was consciously thinking of at the time I chose that deck. We have the cheetah, the tiger. There are four: the cheetah, the tiger, the lion, and the panther. But there are five cards, sort of. There's actually seven. Apparently, I can't do math today, but that's fine. Or count. I can't count. Well, I can't do math in the 4 plus 3, and I can't count in the four being five or the five being four. So before the cheetah was the deer. After the cheetah is the tiger. So before the tiger is the cheetah, and after the tiger is the firefly. So there's this deer, tiger, cheetah, firefly, and there's this. So within this, also we have the page of wands at the bottom of the at the bottom of the witch's tarot, where there's a cat accompanying a person. I'm watching an anime right now in which forest cats accompany city people. Forest cats become city people. Forest cats do become city people, but forest cats turn into city cats. Forest cats become city cats when they bond with a human, right? And when they bond with a human, they teach that human magic because the Kate Shees have an intimate and natural relationship with spirits, and the magic of that world is taught by based on the spirits. They teach humans magic, even though at some point it's kind of taboo. um well be At some point it was taboo, and it's in a way it was because of the distance and the relationship or proximity to nature and the spirits of nature, that humans don't come upon magic as easily as they do. um the Kate Shees serve as a kind of intermediary, right? They serve as companions and also teachers of magic and all kinds of things. So that, like, it's almost touches so exquisite I barely bring myself to purr. And the duende brought forward or added to that Kate She accompanying humans of the one Kate She that became a human that potentially has children. And maybe the Kate She doesn't reveal, because when we saw the Kate She today in the latest episode, it hasn't revealed that it's a cat. It's living as a human adventurer. It went on to um, conquer, slay, combat the Demon King's army. Um, and again, like, nobody knew it was a cat. It was like, shh, because it saw one of its siblings. And it was like, don't tell. But it's like, in retracing, it doesn't even necessarily have to be the blood of a Kate She, because again, in that story, it was their bond to the Kate Shees that granted them access to spirits to give them magic. In retracing that, they awaken that bond, and however come upon this magic. And that's why, or that's shown in starting with the deer representing that innocence within the people that caused them to resonate with the forest cat that they resonated with, for them to open their home and for the forest cat to become a city cat within their home. It's the deer, right? And then because of the light of the firefly paired with that, it was like, oh, like they awakened to that. Either the lineage within them, secretly KC people, or the bond, right? So that was the cheetah and the tiger. Then we had the hawk, the lion, the spider, the jaguar, and the swan. Now, looking at the hawk to the spider, there's a a perception with the bird's eye view, but also the keenness of vision because it's a hawk. That was the precursor before the lion, and then we had the spider that sits at the middle of the web. So this was going from being able to get a certain vantage point, viewing from that bird's eye perspective, to seeing like the bigger picture and how everything connects within that big picture. But then immediately connecting to the panther, we get the swan. So this is someone seeing their place within the scope of everything. So from that vantage point viewpoint to seeing the bigger picture to seeing, and maybe it goes beyond just someone seeing their place in the bigger picture to I feel like that it makes sense for the person tracing the trails of her Romani peoples. Again, with that, because the landscape and times have changed, we may not see why the path was what it was. And there's something here in the spider and the swan that like fleshes that context out. The spider is to see the path, and the swan is to see the why. Now, this path, again, illuminated by the firefly, also called to mind the image of a circuit. And in tracing a path, like a circuit is drawn. When it's connected to power, that is related to the big cat, the KC, because the circuit is complete, power can flow through it and anything connected to it will be filled with power. But this power, the circuitry is within you. Then we went to the mystical shaman oracle cards, and before and after the jaguar, we had the spiral and the serpent. Interesting. The spiral mentioned the coiled serpent at the bottom of the archetypes was Mobius, which is the coiled serpent, but the coiled serpent still has appendages or limbs. It still has limbs, which gave like snakes still have pelvises, they're vestigial structures. There's a point in which, they used to have limbs. No, they don't. But the spiral digs deep within the self. I'll read it from the book again because the book said it in a way better than I can paraphrase. The spiral is a guide for entering deep into one's consciousness and the unknown, and then extending far into the heavens. What I'm just now seeing, there was something coiled up within the spiral. In a spring, this is potential energy. when you compress a spring, you fill it with potential. And as you release it, the potential is converted into like kinetic energy and whatever else as it's like released, right? You're compressing, 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 building potential, and then you release it and pow. I feel like that pow didn't have the enthusiasm that I typically put on a pow, but it's fine. There's something about this spiral uncoiling as this serpent. Again, in the serpent, it matches the extension of like beyond into the heavens, but also deep within to one's own self. Also, with this, like seeing oneself, there's something about the swan and the spider that when I first read it, again with the spiral and serpent, it very much so plays into that wanderer duende. It feels like it goes beyond the duende. The duende is this budding feeling of like closeness with one's ancestors or whatever that connection is. And it feels like there's something, some kind of revelation or something between the spider and the swan. It's seen with the hawk, the spider, and the swan. It's seen, but as the spiral uncoils into that serpent, it is like acted out in a way or like realized. It's converted from potential energy to a form of energy that actually like does something, right? Now, I also looked in the tea leaf fortune cards and we had the lion and the tiger. We also had a cat. Before the cat was disappointment in a friend or lover. After the cat was reconciliation. Before the lion is someone is trying to come between you and a friend or something you want. After the lion is an exciting event. Before the tiger is pay attention to your finances. After the tiger is a wish come true. We got the lion and the tiger in the tea leaf fortune cards. And again, through this context now, there's an image of like a sacred obstacle with the wedge. The wedge is someone trying to come between you and a friend or something you want. It's very, it's like after the wedge is removed, the obstacle is overcome. It feels like what was an antagonistic relationship potentially maybe it's so much the energy of like pre-incarnation. Before you incarnated, you had contracts, both like karmic contracts, karmic in both positive, affirming, cooperative ways, and negative in like challenging, oppositional type of ways, right? Like you agreed to challenge one another, but in overcoming that challenge, you discover something that you may not have necessarily discovered without an obstacle. Strength that you wouldn't have necessarily discovered if you didn't have to be that strong type of energy. And after you become that strong and you overcome that obstacle, it's almost an energy of like a recognition. And through that recognition or after that recognition and appreciation, like I know that it's that type of energy of like we didn't see eye to eye and our relationship was definitely antagonistic, but without you, I would have never become the person that I am today. So in that, I part of me has to thank you type energy. And that's just it doesn't go any deeper or further than that, right? It's not necessarily like it's not there's no comment on how that dynamic, if it's with the person, changes after that realization and appreciation. I think there are certain pathways where there's like a friendship that sort of blooms from that. And I think there are pathways where it's just admiration, appreciation, acknowledgement, and that's the limit of it. That's the extent of it. And maybe the person, the wishbone, is after that obstacle is overcome, it's like everything that's kind of released, right? If there was something, if there was a strength that you had to gain through adversity, now that the strength is gained, the adversity has no reason to linger or stay. So, like, things move in all kinds of ways. Just like the card after the big cat was framed as a kind of perk of the lesson learned, it's like there were things that were like anti perks. Like, because challenge is what was on the menu, there were certain things that like didn't happen, or they were slow or whatever. It was delayed, and it was delayed just because you were in a time of being challenged. It wasn't necessarily directly related to the challenge, but it definitely contributed to the energy of things being challenging. And now that the challenge is over, it's like everything else can free up. So, in a way, that's the recap. That's the TLDW of it all. Now, before this all started, I pulled three cards. After I shuffled the Witch's Tarot, I pulled three cards from the top and the card at the bottom, and I put them on the table face down. And now we will see what they were. So, the first card is the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles is so interesting. So, I mentioned that after the last life, where we saw the leopard, and it came out with the energy of the lion that was prominent, came out in the lion spread of 4/4/2023, grantor of power and righter of wrongs. That's the title, the lion spread, grantor of power and righter of wrongs. And again, it's interesting because the lion didn't grant power in the way of bestowing it upon an individual. The lion granted power through the observation of an individual at work, going, evolving from an amateur to an adept along their path of mastery. So the individual kind of sort of comes into a power on their own through overcoming challenges and things of that nature. And again, that's why, like, at the time, it brought Mulan to the forefront, because I had recently seen a theory that Mushu, like the ancestor, did awaken, but it awakened within Mulan. It was with her, encouraging her, awakened within her as she did everything she did to overcome things that she overcame. And that lion granted her power served much of the same function. It didn't necessarily do anything in and of itself, but it accompanied her as she went and did it, right? Very much so in a like two sets of footprints in the sand type of way. And it's interesting because in that, so I mentioned that I saw the moon and the hermit, and it was this Virgo Pisces. At the time in 2023, I wasn't thinking of North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo. Eventually, it did come to that point later. In the beginning, I was like Pisces Virgo. Maybe this is like Pisces season to Virgo season. And I think as I continued to watch it, I was like, this could be North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo. So it's interesting for us to be here now, literally at the tail end, literally a week, a few weeks out, a week out a week and some change. A week, roughly a week out of the end of Pisces Virgo. North Node shifting into Aquarius, South Node shifting into Leo. The Six of Pentacles was in between the Moon and the Hermit, or it was the Moon, the Hermit, and then the Six of Pentacles, but it represented the transit of things across that Pisces Virgo axis. So it's interesting that it's here. Now, the Six of Pentacles is usually a card of, you can say charity, things being given to someone in need. But instead of it being things being given to someone in need, the Six of Pentacles does also represent reciprocity. So it's like what we give in one realm is reciprocated in another. So what we give in navigating earthly challenge and stuff like that, we gain in terms of, like, you could say spiritual wisdom. It's being compensated. It's being comped, like divinely comped. It's almost like if you're on a work trip and you have your receipts, and then when you return from the trip, you give them to like HR or whoever, and they compensate you for what you spent on that work trip because it was related to work. There's a similar energy of compensation for work done or for things, I want to say divested, I guess. That's the first card. The second card is the Six of Wands. Six of Pentacles, Six of Wands. I feel like usually the Six of Wands heads towards the right, which is the direction of the future. But this one is heading towards the left in the direction of the Six of Pentacles. We see the wreath that we see in the world. It's a card of overcoming. That's also Leo. Second decan of Leo, 5, 6, 7 of Wands. Second decan of Leo, South Node should roughly be, what's that, late January to maybe mid Feb to 6 months later. The nodes spend roughly 18 months in a sign, right? So if we break that 18 months down into 3 equal parts, it's roughly 6 months. 3 parts because there are 3 decans within a zodiac sign is 30 degrees, a decan is 10 degrees. So 10 degrees of that 30. First decan is the first 10, second decan is the second 10, third decan is the third 10 within the 30 degrees of that sign. So the first 6 months from now, I guess you could say basically end of June to end of January or February would be the first decan. So end of Feb to about end of July, because it would be a year, right? A year from now, but that last 6 months of that year. This kind of sort of speaks to that. In a way, it doesn't necessarily have to be that time specifically. But so what we have seen though is with the Five of Swords energy that came out recently, it was the first decan of North Node in Aquarius. And in the first decan of North Node in Aquarius, there's a grace period because we're in transition from our last life into the next. We're in transition between, again, with the gong, an exciting event. With the wishbone, a wish granted. There's something exciting, wish granting energy. Also, we've seen the star in whatever deck we saw the star in. And in that deck, she wasn't pouring out any water. The fact that the star wasn't pouring out any water meant that there wasn't any healing that needed to be done. And since there wasn't any healing that the star needed to do, all of the star's energy could go towards granting a wish or fulfilling a desire, right? If the star is healing and wish granted, in that space, pouring out the water would have been healing. Since she doesn't have to use any of her energy to heal, she can use all of that energy towards granting a wish. It makes the miracle more pronounced or miraculous or whatever. Healing in and of itself is a miracle in some cases, scenarios, and situations. So, anyway, that's where we saw the first 6 months. So, from now to late January, yeah, January, 7 plus 6 is 13. So, from now until late January is the grace period of us getting used to sort of how things change or being in a new life. After that, you could say we're expected to do better because we know better, or we're expected to, at that point, put the past behind us and to valiantly keep moving forward towards the future. And so maybe this speaks to the things that we've already overcome in a way that's very much, was that the wedge in the gong or the purse in the wishbone? Well, that was the thing about the purse and the wishbone too. The purse is like, pay attention to your finances. Before, the tiger was pay attention to your finances. After is a wish being granted. And it was the energy of, it's almost like our attention is being drawn towards something so that when the miraculous happens, we can see it, we'll notice it almost maybe in real time because we're paying attention to it. And it's not like this miracle that happens in the background. Like our attention is being brought to something. So when it changes, we know like this is the wish being granted. This is the miracle in motion. Um, it was also the Six of Pentacles. I think that's where it was. That was the compensation or the compensation. It's being compensated. And so at this point, maybe from January, end of January to mid to late July of 2027, which is kind of wild. It shouldn't be like, it's 2026 now, but for some reason 2027 feels like, whoa, what? 27. Anyway, maybe at that point, and I don't know if it's because we've had that grace period, but it's like at that point it's being comfortable in where we are, to the point where it's like maybe we're consciously noticing that we're doing things that we may have never thought we would be able to do, or we've overcome something that used to be heavy, but through our own effort. Again, the star didn't need those waters to heal. And so I guess you could say what we've been experiencing for the past 6 months, the things that we've overcome in the past 6 months, maybe in a year, we'll sort of start to see those fruits really bearing labor. The fruits bearing labor, or the labors bearing fruit? Like, wait, what? Maybe we'll see the labor is bearing fruits. Um, then. And it could be like seeds of something planted now. It could just, or what we've overcome now. The third card is the Ten of Pentacles. We see three generations. There is the grandparent, the parents, and then the grandchild. Also, we see the dog, the loyal companion. Interesting that we see a dog when this is all about big cats. Um, it really takes me to the Ten of Pentacles, the Dynasty, and the SKT. And in the SKT, there is life in something that was void. So here, again, like we've planted the seeds already, or the seeds have been planted roughly energetically within the past 6 months. At the top of the year, this year, the seeds have been planted. And there's something about that, the wedge. Someone is trying to come between you and a friend or something you want. Like that may be the vantage point now, or it may have been the vantage point then. But it's interesting. It's energetically like planting seeds somewhere and things don't grow. And so we think we wasted our time, energy, and effort trying to plant and cultivate in soil or in a space where nothing grew. But it's almost like over the course of the next 6 months, roughly, energetically, over the course of the next 6 months, with that Five of Swords North Node, Five of Wands South Node, conditions will be favorable. And then 6 months after that, into a year from now, well, so 6 months from now to a year from now, we'll see that those seeds have like started to sprout and grow. If we didn't plant the seed, nothing would have grown because there would have been no seeds. I feel I feel like I'm not communicating this in a way. I feel like you get it. I feel like you understand what I'm trying to say. But I also like I feel like I'm not doing a great job of communicating it. Like seeds are capable of lying dormant for a certain amount of time, and different seeds can lie dormant for different amounts of time. But something can only grow if a seed was planted, right? So the seed, in order for something to grow 6 months from now, the seed would have had to have been planted within the past 6 months. But because we've planted the seed within the past 6 months, we expect that something at the very least would have popped above the surface by now, especially if we planted it 4 to 6 months ago. We may see it now as like a dud or like it didn't come to fruition for whatever reason. But it's like in 6 months to a year from now, we'll see that something has actually grown. And again, it's very much like we thought we were planting the seed and the time we planted the seed for it to grow more immediately. But in the future, we'll know. It's like tomorrow we'll know why we planted the seed yesterday. Today, we think, what was the point? Like I'm hungry and I don't have any crops. But when it grows in the future, it's because the seeds were planted when they were planted. And again, they're kind of designed to lie dormant until circumstances are ideal for growth. The dormancy period or the rough conditions were taken into account when we were divinely inspired to plant the seed when we planted it. Because our intuition and discernment may have told us to plant the seed, we may have thought it would be like an immediate harvest. Like there wouldn't be a time of drought, for example. But it's like it was always known that there would be a drought. But because the seeds are endurant by nature, and because periods of dormancy are encapsulated within the workings of how seeds seed, it was known. But again, if we didn't plant the seeds, then nothing would have grown. and they grow from the void in the SKT, a space where we think there is nothing or nothing grows. It does. Now, the card that was at the bottom of the deck is the shadow side. It's so funny that it's the shadow side because I was like, I was getting sun energy, but I was like, I'm not gonna say, I'm not gonna say I'm feeling sun energy because I feel like it's not gonna be the sun, and in fact, it's the shadow side, which you could say is the opposite of the sun, but there is this like light up here. This is so interesting to me. The shadow side in the Witch's Tarot sits in the space of the devil, but it's Major Arcana number 15. But in the other edition, just like I've never noticed the cat in the other edition or the other print of this deck that I have, and the other print of you can kind of see it, but the shadow side is a card of projections and illusions, right? It's like there's this shadowy figure here, and they fear that shadowy figure, but they don't know that it's just like an illusion, a hologram, a projection, because to them it's real. But for some reason in this print, it very much so gives like the boogeyman at the end of like the hall, but it's like a coat on the back of a chair or something like that. Like when you turn the lights on, you know, you can see what it actually is. You know what I mean? And it's not what it appeared to be in the dark. And this card, again, it's almost giving like, oh, that's just like a coat that's sitting on top of some kind of like rock formation. And because of the angle with the light, it makes it seem like in the shadow, it appears to be some kind of thing that it's not. What's interesting about this is, though, this brings an element of the Keeper of Karnak. The Keeper of Karnak, for me, energetically, is basically the space of a light that's so bright that it exaggerates like any shadow, right? But here, again, in this print, it feels more obvious that there's not a boogeyman. It's just a coat on the back of a chair or something like that. I feel like it's almost always a coat, right? It's a coat on the couch. It's a coat on the back of a chair. It's a coat on a coat hanger or like hanging up somewhere. You know what I mean? And it feels like, so honestly, with the Six of Wands, this feels like someone effortlessly overcoming the trial of the lion or whatever. And I feel like it's because of that wanderer. The wanderer is following a map that is intrinsic to her in some way. And in following that map, it's almost like, because again, with retracing the path, you would expect for there to be like straight lines. And so it's almost like if you were to take a straight on approach, I'll keep doing it backwards. I keep doing it backwards. There you go. No, good. No. How to wait here. Okay. If you were to take a straight on approach, you would sort of reach this vantage point where, because of the lighting, a natural rock feature looks like a person, and you go, oh my gosh, it's like it's some kind of scary giant. But with her winding approach, it's like she approaches it in a way where it doesn't look like that. And that's through her following her. And so it's like whatever was meant as a safety measure or as a guardian or whatever. Again, in this deck in particular, it's illusory by nature. It's a trick of perception, perspective of the mind. Also, with the hawk, we already see this higher vantage point and perspective, right? And that's why it feels like she never sees it that way because she approaches it in a way where that's like not the case. Anyway, cool. That's what we got. That's what I got. Six of Pentacles, Six of Wands, and the Ten of Pentacles. I feel like that's also interesting because of the Six of Pentacles and the Six of Wands. Again, that Six of Pentacles is the energy of something being like there's a deservedness almost, not necessarily a reciprocity, but a deservedness for the work that you put in. This is what you're compensated for. Someone's being compensated for. It feels like for someone, they feel like they're being compensated more than the work that they've done or more than what they've put in to something. And I guess it gives the energy of like, for all of the trouble you've been through, the best is doubled just for you type energy. It's basically interest, right? Because it's a delayed payment because you went through, again, that time where it seemed like the seed was planted for no reason. When you do get the payout, you're compensated. You get interest. I think, too, I'm looking at the firefly after this tiger, especially as you're approaching the whatever. Also, this does bring to mind, of course, there was an energy of like a moon lit, like there's a full moon, but it's cloudy. And so, because it's so cloudy, something is particularly dark, but then the clouds move and the full moon like fully illuminates something. And it feels like it reveals itself more so. It feels like because it is revealing itself, the clouds part more so than like the cloud through these natural movements of the clouds. Something just so happens to be revealed because you were in the right time at the right place when the clouds were no longer blocking the moon. It's not coincidence or alignment of circumstance, it's intentional. Again, Six of Pentacles energy. There's a compensation for something here. It's not just like random or by chance. Anyway, with this firefly, especially when it comes to approaching that keeper of Karnak energy, the light of the firefly comes from within them. And it feels like that's why they can kind of sort of keep things in check as they approach. So, in a way, it could be like the shadow is revealed because of that proximity to the light, but because someone's own light is turned on, the shadow, the scale is appropriate. It's not blown out of proportion and over exaggerated, right? You see the shadow of my hand here? Now, if I put my hand all the way up here, well, I'm like literally blocking the light. But look how big the shadow of my hand is when I put it this close to the light. It's bigger than like my head, right? I'm wiggling my fingers. But here, it's like closer, right? The shadow more so matches my hand. And it's like when the light is turned on inside, it keeps it proportionate. Anyway, Anyway, cool. I feel like this is a lot of decks and I'm almost done and I'm ready to go, but I'm gonna get final cards anyway. So actually, I want a picture. I want a picture because I got a feeling like something like this may come up. And then I'm like, whoa, I just saw this card. Actually, no picture. I'm not gonna take a picture. And I got a feeling like I'm gonna be like, oh man, I should have took a picture because I knew, but it also feels more appropriate to just leave this as it is, right? Just like the wanderer, it's intrinsic within her, right? So yeah, cool, interesting. That's what we got. Let me timestamp final cards. 220. We'll say 221. By the time I get to it, it'll roughly be. Oh, girl. Does my camera shake every time I type? Pretty soon, I'm gonna be in a place where I can get a tripod and the camera won't shake every single time I try to do anything. I'm excited. Alrighty. Well, alrighty. All right. All right. There's the arbiter. If that's the arbiter, then this is the mooncat. Yeah. The arbiter, the mooncat, and that blank card. Just like we saw the cat, right? It was disappointment in a friend or lover, and then reconciliation. I don't remember what the actual cards were. Like the title of the cards. I just remember the meaning. Ooh. Okay. We got a final Archeo archetype. This is so funny. I saw this card when I was putting the cards back into the deck. I opened it up to the metamorph. Bottom of the deck is the trickster. And it's funny. Well, I guess it's the jester more so than the trickster. Right, here's the jester. You see the pants of the jester? It's the jester, right? Yeah. See the jester, the title up there. You see the pants of the jester and then the pants of the metamorph. But this is the trickster. The trickster has a tail. The trickster has a tail. Oh, wait. Hold up. How did this happen? Half of the deck is. But hold up. Hold up. Oh, that's because I went looking for the trickster. Where's the metamorph? Did I put it back in? Oh, it's at the top. Okay. Goodness. Oh my goodness. That's how it happened. Because I went looking for the trickster. I was like, whoa. Or I went looking for the jester. But it's like it's obvious that the trickster isn't like it has a tail. You know what I mean? The metamorph here is interesting because of the wanderer and the duende. So if this bookends the final card for the wanderer and the duende, there's some kind of embodiment or becoming here. There's the pool that through the cards is ancestral. So within the metaphorical, I want to say metalogical for some reason, and I'm pretty sure that's not a word. Not meteorological, metalogical. Metalogical refers to anything of or related to metalogic, which is the study of logical systems themselves. See, it's not that. Metalogic is the meta theory of logic, whereas logic studies how logical systems can be used to construct valid and sound arguments. Metalogic studies the properties of logical systems. It's metalogic in a way that's like there's logic, like logic and reasoning, and then there's like meta logic. Like from a meta level, there's logic. So again, it plays on like the hawk and the spider and the swan with that vantage point, viewpoint, and then understanding. Um, it's like this meta type of thing, right? You could say it's like spiritual logic and reasoning. Like spirit is the meta, right? The material is the logic, the spiritual is the meta. What is this? Oh, a title card. Yeah, anyway. Um somebody becomes. Oh, within the metaphorical framework of the Kate She that disguised itself as a human, had children. It's like several generations have gone by. Maybe nobody knows. Maybe it is passed down. Doesn't really matter. It's like at that point, you would think that the blood is so diluted that the person or people can't return to the cat form. But with the metamorph, somebody discovers the magical way to turn back into a cat. And again, within that metaphorical context, it's a part of their genealogy, ancestry, history, lineage. They're like some percentage cat, Kate She. Again, I feel like you would think it's so diluted that it wouldn't happen, but apparently it does. Now, do they do a 180 from their ancestor? Do they just go and become a cat and go live life in the wild? Hey, these days, maybe. Maybe they're like, you know what? The world is crazy right now. I'm just going to be a cat and I'm going to go out and do cat things. And when people figure it out, I'll go back to being human. How about that? And then maybe for a hot minute, people don't figure it out. And maybe they're like a cat for so long that they forget that they were ever human. We don't got to get too deep in the metaphor. But am I reading the tale of the metamorph? Sure. Why not? I don't know if I've ever read the Metamorph's Tale. I love the tales in this deck, but I don't always read them. A child stands frozen, unable to step beyond its shadow, quaking on the edge of panic, its parents nowhere to be seen. From the night come the griffin and the sphinx, brother and sister, creatures, in transition, morphing twixt here and there. Grasping the child's hands, they swing it high, sending it in a playful arc across the divide. When it lands on the other side, they are there to steady it. The metamorph is neither and both at once, yet it may be trusted, For she was a changeling able to cross boundaries that to others might seem insurmountable. I feel like there's something like profound there that almost just caused my brain to like short circuit a little bit. It's interesting that we get the griffin and the sphinx. It's interesting that we get the griffin and the sphinx because I specifically didn't pull or I specifically didn't use the mythical creatures oracle cards because I don't think there's just like a straight up big cat mythical creature. I talked about it, right? How the foo dogs are like based on lions. The foo dog is someone who's never seen a lion's interpretation of a lion. But then we have like the griffin that's half big cat. Also, the sphinx is part big cat. But since they're not purely big cat, I didn't pull them. But here in the final card of the metamorph, it specifically mentions two mythical creatures that are part big cat. Unable to step beyond its shadow. The metamorph is neither and both at once, yet it may be trusted, for she was a changeling, able to cross boundaries that others might seem insurmountable. That to others might seem insurmountable. Create your own hero's quest and meet your faithful companions. Ask the alchemist to help you see beyond the mundane. Navigate through your complex emotions and thoughts with the illuminator at your side. Let the warrior protect you and give you courage. Delving into the attributes and personas of all 40 archetype cards, this full color companion book shows you how to maximize your personal mythology. I don't think I've ever read the back of this before. Maximizing your personal mythology with that Wanderer card. Interesting. The bottom of the deck was the Trickster. So again, like the Trickster is obviously not just like a regular person. He has a tail. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's almost like there is no within the tail of the metamorph. The Trickster is life. It's almost very like there's that one like in every season, according to some YouTube video, and it was confirmed by the creators of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Because I've seen I've seen bits and pieces a long time ago, back when it was airing on TV, and I probably didn't even watch a full episode. But it's like in every season there was a villain, but in one season the villain was life. It's like the trickster was life because the boundary seems insurmountable to so many others. It's like it wasn't a lie or an attempt to intentionally deceive that metamorph changeling, because for everyone else the boundary was very much so real, but because the changeling grew up around those individuals, the fear or the powerlessness or the whatever makes the boundary insurmountable to them It's instilled within the changeling. And again, to them, it's real. For them, it's very much so insurmountable. And so they're not intentionally trying to trick the changeling, but that's why the trickster is life. Because it's like they don't necessarily sit in the role of the trickster just because things are different for the changeling. And so there's a question of, not a question, there's a interesting conundrum, question mark. Once the metamorph discovers that they are a changeling able to cross between the boundary, do they become a trickster for the people where they were? Meaning, it feels like the changeling discovers its ability to effortlessly transit across some kind of border, right? And so maybe they go back and they're like, you can, like, the border isn't, it's not the border isn't real, but like you can get across the border. Like I've been across the border and I've come back to help you get across the border. But it's almost like maybe they still can't cross the boundary. And so that's why it's like, does the changeling become a trickster because it's trying to get them across a boundary that they can't cross because they aren't that trickster? So, for example, because this is the metamorph, there is the wanderer who becomes the cat. Because they have KHC lineage DNA, it's a form that's within them to turn into. But they can't necessarily teach other people to turn into cats who don't have that same KHC lineage. Because for the wanderer, they're returning to something, or they're changing into something that is within them. But for someone who that is not within, they would need a different kind of magic. They would need a transformation magic and not a magic to take one, like to take on ancestral or lineage based forms or abilities or whatever. Right? It would be a different circuit, a different route, a different path to get to the same result. Interesting. Okay. And again, just like there was the image of the moon, like the clouds parting from the moon and someone seeing something that they didn't see before, we have the griffin and the sphinx, creatures of night, that are there to help the metamorph changeling. Interesting. Okay. All right, let's put these back. Oops. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with this. I guess I'll just put them back in the bag. Can you even like shake these up? Like I feel like they're not necessarily mixing, you know? I don't know. Not really. It's fine. Interesting. And maybe that takes us, or that maybe that brings the owl back into the loop because there is an energy of affinity. Someone has an affinity for cat. In this example, metaphorically, someone would have an affinity for cats because somewhere in their ancestry, a Kate she worked its way into it. Somebody's got mythical DNA. Nobody knew, because the Kate She took the form of a human and never told anybody that it was actually a Kate She. And it's like, just like there's Kate She, maybe there's like dragon folk. And because the dragon could transform into a cat. There's a few different creatures. The Kate She, the one that mothered the dragon, she's like, yeah, I've had plenty of children who weren't cats. But she raised them as cats until they get to the age that they realize that they're not cats. But they can magically transform into a cat-like shape. Now that transformation magic they learn when they're older. Pretty much after they discover that they're not a cat, they learn to take the form of an actual cat. These are not coming together. Okay. All right. Anyway, I don't know. At that point, it is just like, since it's a matter of affinity, some other people may become like owls, right? Now, or it's like that same lineage, ancestry, transformation magic that would turn the wanderer into a mooncat. If someone else were to use it, maybe they would turn into like some kind of owl because they owl folk, or something else because they're something else folk, right? I don't know. All right. Mystical Shaman Oracle cards. Your final card, please. Whew. It's been almost 3 hours. I'm starting to sweat. I feel like at the end of this, all of a sudden, I'm starting to get like really warm. I'm starting to get really warm. We're getting the final card, so I will shuffle in silence until I get that clean flip or clean fall. That was a much better shuffle. I feel like they're actually combining now. Yeah, they're combining now. Nice. All right, clean flip or clean fall. We're going to keep going. Bottom of the deck is the medicine wheel, number 35. And it's interesting. We got the big cat and the bird and the serpent and some other animal. The hummingbird, the eagle, the serpent, the owl. The card that came out is number 19, fire. I started this other anime. Literally that same anime. The anime where they have the trial, the ritual of the lion, or the trial of the lion, where if you're innocent, the lion won't eat you, but if you're guilty, the lion will eat you. And of course, it kind of had a little bit of a like a witchcraft, not a witchcraft, a Salem witch hunt, witch trial type of flair, where it's like, if you're a witch, you'll. But it was like, honestly the opposite, which is kind of wild. If you're not a witch, you'll drown. So you'll die. If you're falsely accused, you'll die. If you're innocent, you'll die. But if you're guilty, you'll live. If you float, you're a witch. If you drown, you weren't a witch. And oh well, you're dead now. What? Like, I feel like it should have been the opposite. You know what I mean? If you drown, you're a witch. If you float, you're innocent. Because why is an innocent verdict lead to death? So I wonder how many people were like falsely accused and just drowned. And people were never like, this is the 15th. out of 15 people that we've drowned, maybe we should go. I don't know. Anyway, back to this. This is interesting. There's a silhouette here. It's giving me a silhouette. Okay. I feel like I need to be silent more, you know? Not necessarily often, but sometimes I feel like I need to feel the sun in real life, not necessarily so much, but like when I'm live and like someone's potentially watching this, I'm like, this fire is related to. So there's the silhouette in the fire. Can you see the silhouette? Like this is the head and the show. So it's like basically what you see on me. There's like the upper torso into the head, right? It's like there's oh gosh. If I look at it, can you see this? Okay, yeah. Oh, it's like this. Like these are the shoulder, like arm, shoulder, head, shoulder, arm. There's a silhouette in fire, but there's also like this ring around it. The ring around it is giving me the energy of the Ouroboros of Mobius, the serpent that bites its own tail. But it brings to mind the spiral. That was literally in this deck. It was literally in this deck. It spirals inward. Dwarven Magic came out in the last live because we saw the sun card in the Orisha Tarot. In the sun card, someone was holding up we saw the sun, and then we also saw in the five of discs in reverse, it came out in reverse. We saw Babaluaye as a beggar, recognized by Shango when Shango was like riding through on his horse. But because of the burlap sack in the sun card, when someone was holding up the vessel to catch sunlight, to fill it up with sunlight, and the burlap that Babaluaye was wearing, it brought forth that the person with the cup filling it up with sunlight, which we also saw in the Notoria Tarot. I wanted to say Nefertari, Tarot Nefertari. I mean, for me being me, it is kind of surprising that I haven't gone to the Tarot Nefertari yet, necessarily, especially because Amu came out in the Mythical Creature Oracle cards. Obviously, I could have pulled before and after. I haven't. Um, but it came out a while ago. Dwarven Magic, specifically within the God of War franchise, in the Norse pantheon. So God of War PS4 into God of War Ragnarok, it lets them do things with things that they do, even though if it doesn't make sense. For example, like one of the doors wanted to capture the sound of the wind or something like that. So he pulled out a bag and captured the sound of the wind. And they're like, how do you do it? Like, how did you do that? And there's like, it's magic. And it's like, yeah, basically in Dwarven magic, you can use things to do what they should do, even if it doesn't seem like they should be able to do it. Right. So because bags are used to hold things, Dwarven magic allowed him to use the bag to hold the sound of the wind, even if sound is an intangible thing. Right. And there's a forge that you come across in the story. Spoilers, light spoilers, I guess. I don't think it's necessarily super related to the story, but there's a forge that you go looking for. And of course, me thinking it would be an actual forge after this scene of him using a bag to capture the wind is like, well, in Dwarven magic, that's what you can do. The forge isn't like a forge. The forge is like a person, but the person forges things. Um, the reason why I bring it up, it's something to do with the body, because the body is a vessel for the spirit or for the soul, right? And it's almost like the vessel changes in some kind of way to match the spirit or the soul inside of it. Now, I feel like right now there's a lot of maxing that's going on and happening, right? Like this maxing or that maxing, looks maxing, whatever. And I feel like it kind of is a thing. I'm not super aware, but it's come across my timeline. It's come across my feed of like spiritual looks maxing. And it's like as you journey your journey or heal or whatever, then your physical appearance starts to change to mirror, match, and reflect that. It's almost like because vessels are created to house the souls and the spirits that are within them, it kind of goes beyond that into like how the spirit or the soul shapes the vessel. The silhouette in fire is somehow related to the soul, and it exists at a point that one reaches through that spiral, and then something happens and the vessel changes to match that. I don't know, girl. I don't know what that is. Let's get the final animal. The mouse and the swan at the cut. Okay. The hyena and the mouse. Okay. The cheetah and the hyena. Okay. The dragonfly and the cheetah. I saw this huge dragonfly yesterday. It was huge. And it was just like lazily doing its thing. And I did think, well, no, I take it back. I take it back. Because I did think, I was like, there's not even any water around here. Why is there a dragonfly? But the lake is not too far away. It's crazy how I've never realized how close or how near to the lake the places that I see dragonflies are. But it's because, like, on the other side of the lake, it's very like other side of the lake vibes. But on this side of the lake, it's very like commercial. And the view of the lake for the most part is kind of blocked by all of the like buildings and stuff. But I'm like, yeah, it is like literally right there next to the lake. So, seeing a dragonfly out here ain't too wild. The swan and the sea serpent. Cool. All right. Final card from the wild unknown animal spirits. The final card is the hawk. Bottom of the deck is the whale. From the deepest depths to the highest heights. This is so interesting. So I talked about nothing. I guess if you caught that last live before I edited, before I trimmed it, I talked about something I talked about. And I had the thought to do that today or to bring it sort of forward today. I didn't end up doing it. But it's funny how this sort of brings that to mind. Um, with the whale, this gives a context to the hawk. The whale is known for wisdom, depths of wisdom, wells of wisdom that the whale holds. And so maybe that's why the hawk naturally leaned towards the spider. I feel like what's important about the whale at the bottom of the deck is that it's almost like the perspective came into play before the perception. Like that, like the reason why the hawk leads to that spider web interconnectedness of everything is because of what's already within you, if this resonates for you. It's like the hawk just elevates you. It's almost like it gives you a platform to do the things that you do anyway. It almost gives me, so I'm thinking I'm going back to the metamorph, the tale of the metamorph, and that boundary, the barrier, the boundary that is insurmountable to most, but not to the metamorph because the metamorph is a changeling. And so then this is my thought process, right? I think of flat earth and I think of the ice wall or the ice caps or whatever in flat earth and how that is like the boundary for humanity, but how the metamorph could just walk across that boundary. And then that takes me to Lord of the Rings, which is interesting. I've been seeing Lord of the Rings has been like peppering itself into my experience lately. There was a talk between Elijah Wood and the person who plays Sam. I'm so sorry to that man. Um, and they were talking about how with the Hobbit feet, they were like there was an adhesive to the Hobbit feet, but because they were where they were, like if they started to sweat, then the adhesive would start to melt. So they were like slipping inside their own feet. And so he had to have like Frodo, Sam had to have Frodo on his back. Usually they said that they wore like harnesses as like a safety measure. Again, because they're slipping inside their own feet. But because of the camera and stuff, like Frodo couldn't have a harness because you would see it. Not only would you see it on camera, but it would be uncomfortable as he's carrying Frodo. So it was a hope and a prayer, basically, that things didn't go tragically sideways as they were filming on location, right? So that came up. Lord of the Rings. There was like one of those 15 words or less kind of guess, like Lord of the Rings was one of them. I forget what the clue was. It was ring, and I forget the second clue. Ring and something else. Anyway, why am I? Oh yeah. So I don't. I've read, I've heard, I've seen, I've watched, read, heard, or seen, not through personal experience. Someone else talk about the makeup of the world of the Lord of the Rings. I don't know what the world is called. I want to say Anduin, but I'm sure that's not right. Um, in that universe, the place that Frodo goes to at the end, I think it's on like only elves can go there. Something happened. It was maybe the conquest of man, like humans in that world. And in order to protect the elves, the world was like made flat for everybody else but the elves, but for the elves it kept that curvature. And so the places that only elves can go to like exists on that curvature, whereas it's like flat for everybody else. And because elves, they're able to naturally transition across those boundaries, borders. Again, sort of like that ancestral energy of the wanderer. I guess I could look it up. We'll do, oh girl, LOTR elves round world. In the AI overview, in J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, the shape of the world, Arda, it did start with an A. Arda changes over time, fundamentally affecting the elves and their journeys. Depending on the era, which is interesting because it was the landscape and time for the Romani. Depending on the era, the world transitions from a flat surface to a sphere, which leads to the creation of the straight road for elven ships. The Flat Earth era, Arda unmarred, the original design. For the majority of Tolkien's history, Arda was a flat disk. Middle Earth lay in the center, separated by the Great Sea from the western continent, where the Undying Lands in Valinor were located. The elves originally awoke on Middle Earth and traveled across the flat world to live in the Undying Lands. Because the world was flat, sailing west to Valinor was a straightforward physical journey over the ocean. So then in the spherical Earth era, the changing of the world, so it was the opposite of how I said it. Because again, I barely know. The cataclysm. Near the end of the Second Age, the islands of Numenor was destroyed after its inhabitants tried to invade the Undying Lands. As punishment, the Supreme Creator reshaped the world, making it spherical. With the planet now curved, the Undying Lands were removed from the physical dimensions of the mortal world. Valinor was pushed into a separate unseen realm outside the circles of the world. Mortals sailing west would simply follow the curvature. So there are like different things I'm not even reading. The straight road. Mortals sailing west would simply follow the curvature of the earth and eventually end up where they started. However, the elves built hallowed ships capable of traveling the straight road, a mystical celestial pathway that ignored the curvature of the planet and allowed them to sail directly into the hidden realm of Valinor. So it was like different. The world was flat, and then because of whatever, it became round for everyone but the denizens of that place that was the world was reshaped to protect. So they travel straight while everyone else follows the curvature. And it was reshaped in a way that again it's outside of the curvature. And so, yeah, it brings that to mind. How did I get there from the hawk and the whale? I don't know. Why did this bring? How do we get to flat Earth? From flat Earth to Arda with the whale and the hawk? I don't know. Anyway, it's like because someone had the capacity that they have, and maybe that's the thing too. Like simply getting a bird's eye view because of the way I pulled this, more so because of the way they came out and them being connected. Excuse me, it's almost like a one thing naturally leads to another type, right? Because the hawk has the vantage point that they have, they're able to see the interconnectedness of all things naturally with the spider. And then through virtue of seeing the interconnectedness of all things and being slash seeing themselves, they're able to see themselves in all things. But that's not always the case. Like I started watching this other show, and by accidentally, the show that I was watching auto played into a show I wasn't even watching. In that world, the future rulers are ones that have the gift of precognition. It's another one of those a person is incarnated or reincarnated into an Otome game where in the original storyline they're a villain, but because the person that incarnated isn't villainous, they're not a villain. You know what I mean? They don't become a villain because they reincarnate in the body of a villain, right? Maybe that speaks to this in some way. Someone, it's like the changeling, and it's fine. Maybe there's some kind of something there somewhere. But anyway, in that, she gets the gift of precognition, but in the original timeline, she never thinks to use that gift for good or for the benefit of anybody but herself. And so it's one of those, it's not necessarily inherent. Just because A happens doesn't necessarily mean that B follows. Maybe it gets into the meta logic, right? Metalogically, it is very like straightforward, but through living, it's not necessarily the case. Interesting. I gotta go to the restroom. I'm surprised I made it this long. I'll be back. Ooh. All right, we're back and we're back. All right, we're back and we're back. All right. ALRIGHT. All right, cool. How did I end up on that? I don't know. Anyway, is this it? Yeah. Okay. The Witch's Tarot. Mini Witch's Tarot. Oh, okay. Well, we got our flippers. We got our flippers. We got our flippers. The King of Wands, the title card, and the Queen of Wands. Wait. Bottom of the deck is the Nine of Cups. This is so interesting. The title card between the King and Queen of Wands, especially when we're talking about Valinor and, the curvature and reshaping of Arda. Maybe because of the Nine of Cups at the bottom of the deck, this is something wished for. Because we see the King and Queen of Wands, we could assume it's something romantic. Even the Queen of Wands is wishing for her king, and the King of Wands is wishing for his queen. But with this title card in between them, one would have to cross that boundary. This is almost very like chicken or the egg, but I guess in a way it kind of doesn't matter. I'm gonna cut this. The Nine of Pentacles, which is pre-Empress energy. Oh, I should have took it. Now there's another title card. The other title card. Because the Nine of Pentacles was standing, I'm gonna find it. I should have pulled it, but I didn't. It was somewhere around here. Can I find it real quick? Like, it was definitely around the. Here it is. Between the Knight of Wands and the Eight of Cups. We saw the Page of Wands earlier. This deck is bringing out the wands for some reason. Because of the Nine of Wands. You see how she's like standing in this doorway, in the archway? Excuse me. This is very much. There's this ribbon here. I'm gonna pull the Six of Wands. The Emperor is behind this Nine of Cups, by the way. BT Dabs, if you were curious. Oh, I was like, it's right there. If you were curious. Excuse me. Curious. Behind the shadow side is the Hermit holding up that lantern, which again plays into that firefly energy of like, there was the one way that someone avoided the illusion by taking a different route, a different path, or a different route of the wanderer, but there was also the illumination of the firefly that keeps its shadow in check. Hello? This is the World card, by the way. The one that shows the lion is just like a part of the entirety of the thing. Green man energy, also. Again, like the world The lion is just one path. Here we see four. There's the deer. Literally the deer. Interesting. There's the bird. Literally the birds. Interesting. Excuse me. The birds were on the medicine wheel, the hummingbird and the eagle. Now, where's the Six of Wands? The Six of Wands is headed in that direction. Because the Six of Wands is the card of. Hello? Where's the Six of Wands? Let's look one more time. Because the Six of Wands is card of victory, Frodo, after he accomplishes his great trial, he gets on a boat and heads towards that place, towards the Undying Lands, right? Like I said, I've seen the movies once, all of them once. I haven't seen the Hobbit movies, um, which I'm kind of sad about. I've seen the end of the Desolation of Smaug like a few times. It was on TV, and it was always I always caught it at the end of the movie. I'm assuming the Desolation of Smaug is when they actually defeat Smaug, that dragon that had all that gold or whatever. Um, okay, girl, I'm here again. How am I overlooking this card? Is it not in this deck? Did I misplace it? Excuse me. He gets on a boat at the end of the movie and goes to that place that exists beyond the curvature of the world. But when I saw that Six of Wands, I was hyper fixating on. Here it is. The amount of times I've seen this Nine of Wands, maybe I was just like in admiration of the Nine of Wands. Every time I came past it, I didn't even see the Six of Wands right behind it. Six of Wands and Justice. Six of Wands is in between the Nine of Wands and Justice. The Nine of Wands and Justice is very much so the energy of those cards in the TV fortune cards. It was the bull that was don't fold, stand strong. And then what were the other cards? I feel like they were animals. And it was like the reason why you stand strong is because the situation is temporary. Excuse me. Look at this. Someone sitting in the Nine of Cups, the thing that someone is wishing for, manifesting, or desiring exists on the other side of something. So, because of that, they have to overcome something, or they have to go across a boundary that they may be terrified of because it's insurmountable to most. To many, if not all. Excuse me. So, like Yanni all of a sudden. So, someone has to cross that boundary. So, this ribbon in the Six of Wands, I was like, focus. Oh, it's wrapped around the wand. It's wrapped around a wand here in the space of that wreath. But that is what I notice in this Queen of Wands. And again, the Six of Wands is headed in that direction. I talked about it because usually the Six of Wands goes to the right, towards the future. It crosses that barrier. Through whatever the Six of Wands has achieved, it's earned the right to cross that barrier. So it goes from this King of Wands space through the title card to the Six of Wands. Excuse me. And it's part of the package deal. I think sometimes when we ask for, pray for, wish for, manifest certain things, we don't necessarily know all that it entails. So when we encounter certain challenges, or when we come face to face with certain thresholds or boundaries or barriers that are that we deem of as insurmountable because they're known to be insurmountable to most, if not all, um, it's like maybe you could say we psych ourselves out. We may not necessarily see it as part of the path to get to where we're going, but with that Nine of Cups, it's very much so part of that path. Right? In order to get to the place that Frodo ends up, he has to find the ring and go through the harrowing journey of trying to destroy it. All of that was on his path. Right? Right. Okay. Now we're gonna put these away. Put them away, away, away. Ooh, July. Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. Oh. I can't keep playing by the rule of someone else's game. Okay. So from this half of, okay, there we go. All right. October. Bottom of the deck is throne. Position of authority. In October, the October throne. Is someone gonna win Halloween King or Queen? Gavel, involvement with the law. And the kangaroo in reverse, unsettled times, need to plan ahead. Interesting. Maybe we'll ask Gemini. What is the October throne? It feels like the October throne is like a thing. I don't know what it would be. Excuse me. Now it is interesting because October, I'm pretty sure, was 15 or 16, 15 weeks out from however long ago. Hey Google, what is the October throne? It's like I gotta push the button now. They don't just stop listening and respond. Now it's thinking. Maybe I'll just Google it. Now I want to ask Gemini. Hey Google, what is the October throne?
The phrase October throne does not have a widely recognized standard historical or cultural meaning. It most commonly refers to October throne in my own world. a 2015 book of fantasy fiction and poetry by author Belden Wimbush.
Okay. In My Own World, October Throne. As I was talking about that Lord of the Rings, it brought to mind, obviously, the hero's journey that we saw in the archetypes on the back of the book. Like, create your own hero's journey, your personal mythology. So, that October Throne in My Own World is interesting. October Throne book. I could have just Googled it. Oh, wait, is it a series of books? Throne of Vengeance. What is this? The Throne. Can I get like a Wikipedia plot summary? You know what I mean? October Throne book summary. It's a short story collection that explores the duality of life, blending inspirational and darker themes. The author uses a mix of positive and negative expressions, likening them to the contrast between Hennessy and rum, with a focus on drama and romance. Interesting. The Undying? Notable titles, short stories. Notable titles include The Decision, The Undying, and The Old is the New, The Wrong is the Right. What is The Undying? Because of The Undying lands, obviously we got to look at The Undying, right? October Throne, The Undying. No, 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 you're not. No. Hello? October Throne in My Own World. Oh, I'll just say it. October Throne in My Own World, The Undying. Ebook on Amazon. Oh man, it's fine. It's fine, I guess. It's fine, I guess. He's giving me all this different stuff. It's a collection of short stories and poems. Well, just still Belton Wimbush, The Undying. How about that? Belden Wimbush. Belden Wimbush, The Undying. this, is, this is making me a little sad. I'm like, man, come on, come on, come on. October Throne. You know what? I give up. It's fine. If I find it, I'll post it in the community post or something. Is something happening in October? Maybe. I feel like this is a deck I gotta shuffle with my nails. Gotta hook the cards with my nails and try to shuffle. Okay. That was one. Ooh, okay, all right. The cat. The cat is back. The cat is a two-faced friend. I guess I didn't read what the cat actually was. Bottom of the deck is the purse. Pay attention to your finances. Pay attention to your finances and a two-faced friend. Interesting. Now there is something almost like the Princess Diaries about this two-faced friend and pay attention to your finances. It's almost like, maybe one of those almost Hallmarky type stories where like someone has a friend and it's like your friend is very it's almost one of those like I used to have this roommate back in college who didn't go to class and didn't work, but they all like the bills were paid. And I was like, where do you get your money? Turns out they were secretly royalty. My unemployed roommate was secretly a prince or whatever. Anyway, I got this fan when I was in Maine visiting. Visiting. I was gonna say when I was in Maine visiting Eve, and it's funny because I was like doing this right, and then I started watching the anime about the villainess, and she had a fan that she would like. Okay, it's fine. I stopped. Oh, when the power was out, this thing was my lifeline. The power was out, and it was so hot, and I would just be in here, just like fanning myself, like, oh goodness. And where's the bag now? That two-faced friend, though, it's very much the energy of that one guy. What's his name? Gus from Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson's best friend who ended up being like a satyr or something. It's not necessarily two-faced in a way that's like a bad way. But just like how the Sphinx and the Griffin were creatures of the night that pulled the metamorph over the boundary. It's like that, right? It's like that. Where did I put that bag? Where did the bag go? Hello? You may cross some threshold and find somebody that you already know. And you're like, what? And they're like, yeah, girl. Now, either you're both arriving there for the first time or it ain't their first rodeo. Kind of sort of again, like it mentioned, October Throne was the positive and negative, whatever. It did make me think of the bull. What were the cards? The wedge around the lion, the wedge and the gong with the purse and the wishbone. When it was like someone may overcome something, and then in overcoming it, they discovered that their biggest obstacle was like they may become friends or something like that. It's like you get to the other side and you see a familiar face. Maybe that person is new as well, or maybe they've been accompanying you this whole time and you didn't even necessarily know. Anyway, I can keep looking for the bag off camera. That is the final card from all the decks that I've used. I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way you find. And yeah, I guess it's now is the time, if there ever was one, to follow your intuition, discernment, let it guide you wherever you're going. And if you come across something that seems insurmountable, but it's pulling you to it anyway. It's like that siren. Also, because we started talking about Psyche and Cupid, Eurydice, if she were to have crossed that boundary, Anana Ishtar, uh, Enoch and Metatron, Elijah and Sandalphon, Bodhisattvas. Sorry, sorry. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. Um. Yeah. Anyway, I gave the spiel. I'll catch y'all the next time I catch y'all. Do we necessarily get anything different or new? Maybe, kind of, sort of, potentially. I guess it doesn't necessarily always have to be new. It was what it was. Sometimes we could use a reminder. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.